Om Tat Sat. So, we are doing Vedantasara. We had done the first verse where we are still stuck with the Mangalacharanam part. First, he bows down to Parameshwara Paramatma, and in Mangalacharana, he is supposed to bow down to Ganeshi or specific deities. Why is bowing down to Atman? Why not to any gods and goddesses? The explanation was that he was actually, by addressing the Atman, including all divinities. And the verse number 2 is explaining Arthotopya Dvayanandan Atita Dvaita Bhanataha Gurun Aradhya Vedanta Saram Vakshe Yathamati. Arthataha, and that this verse we had done the Ucharanam and we were expanding the meaning of it. What he's trying to convey here, that he's now doing Guru Pranama. In our tradition, whenever we start any Shastra, any discussion, we very seriously and with all devotion also bow down to the Guru. So the Shastra says, Yasya Deve Parabhaktire Yatha Deve Tatha Guru. The commentator Vidyaranya Muni specifically is mentioning Ityadi Sastra Devata Bhaktivad Guru Bhaktirapi Vidyangatva Pratitehe. So, the way we bow down to different gods and goddesses, as we say in the beginning, Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine, that the same tattva is Ishvara, Guru and Atma. However, we understand them with different names and forms. Therefore, he is saying, Yasya Deve Parabhaktihi. You have Parabhakti, the way Bhagavad Gita explains to us what is Parabhakti. A Parabhakti is for different purposes, for inferior spiritual ends. Parabhakti is for liberation. Parabhakti comes when we have perfect antakarana. Parabhakti. Yatha Deve Tatha Guru. The way we have our devotion to our Aradhya Devata, the devotion is equal to the Guru. Because Guru is the gate through which we are connecting with the divinity. In our case, we give equal importance, not to the individual Guru, but we remain ever grateful to the Guru Parampara. And that point is driving home in this verse. Even in Smritis is mentioned, Devam Iva Acharyam Upasita. We should do Upasana of the Acharya. All these Acharyas and Shastras and all in our Parampara, therefore, the Guru Purnima, the Asad Purnima, is of enormous importance. Everybody goes to and bows down to their Acharyas. Smitesya Guru Aradhanakti Purvakam. Now, he is mentioning whom do you worship? He is saying Advaya Nandan Bahuvachana. Ditya Bahuvachana, that. Now, Advayananda is the name of his guru. Is he worshipping one or many? I had told you that this Bahuvachana is Sanmanarthe. So he's saying Arthatam Api. So it's not only Advayananda is just not a name, but he is genuinely somebody who has gone beyond the Dvaita Bhana, the dualities that we see and we trust them to be real. They are phenomenal. They are not real. Therefore, the Shastra guides us, indicates to us that we need to focus on this Nirvishesha Brahman, the Atma Tattva. Okay, so he's saying Atma ityeva upasita atra hi ete sarvam ekam bhavanti sarve ekam bhavati. Everyone becomes one only. So obviously the focus is on Nirvishesha Brahman. The focus is not on the gods and goddesses or the divinities that we deal with when we are doing our upasanas every day. Specific spiritual forms, specific spiritual symbols through which we are trying to connect with the absolute Atman, the absolute Brahman. Therefore, he is giving this advice to us how to move forward. And then he says, now I'm going to explain the secrets of Vedanta. How does he do? Gurun Aradhya, Gurun Bhavachan again. What? It is indicative of the Vedanta Parampara. So the Vedanta Parampara, the Acharya Parampara, is bowing down. You might have a bit of doubt in your mind. Is he scared? Why does he do it? And he's saying Yathamati. And as we had discussed in the previous class, Yathamati could be the way I understand it. It could also be the way this has been handed down to me through the Acharya Parampara. That means I'm not transgressing the standard interpretations. I'm not trying to put my own human mind into it. I'm an honest carrier of these eternal truths and the meanings. In our tradition, this is another interesting thing that generally, even if you read the Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or Vedanta Sastras, you can pick up a book, translation into English, and you try to read it. You can actually get the meaning after some time. In the beginning, they always advise that read it from an Acharya. That Acharya has again heard it from Guru. He has done the Guru Mukha Shravana. Therefore, he is genuinely telling you how this is understood in the tradition. Because the Sanskrit words are multi-significant. They can mean, multi-significant means what? You have the sign and the signified. So whenever a sentence is written, pada padartha sambandha is there. There is a pada, there is a word we are using, and there is a artha that we are referring to. Similarly, in vakya, you have vakya and then you have vakyartha. There is something which is intended. The goal of our study or swadhyaya is tatparya bodha. Tatparya bodha is what was intended to be conveyed. So many of the statements which are there in the Puranas, in the Vedas, they are mentioned using a lot of metaphors, a lot of symbolisms. Many people try to literally interpret them, whereas they are actually written in a very, very cryptic, symbolic language. Why so? Because that time that was the tradition that you do not write everything because people will not understand it. Depending on the sadhana of that particular person, in the Guru Parampara, the Guru would explain. And I had told you even earlier, there was also, following the Shruti tradition, there was a Sutra tradition. Those days, they were not writing down, they were only remembering things, and therefore it was important for them to hold everything in memory. So, fewer words, the better. They could not write elaborate, like, for example, if you look at Yoga Vasishtha, Mahabharata, thousands of verses. So you have Yoga Vasishtha. Some people say 6,000 verses, some people say 32,000 verses. different acharyas have tried to put down, because that time already lipi had come, the papers and everything had come. They were able to jot them down, put them. So sometimes they added to explain things, they brought in their own wisdom also. But if you look at the mother text, they're very small in volume, and the gap in terms of the absence of elaborate explanations, this gap was filled by the Acharya Parampara. The Acharya Parampara used to bring in additional explanations, and these explanations would address the questions and apprehensions which are there in the minds of the students who are studying that particular text from the Acharya Mukha. Now there is a beautiful verse is Vidyaranya Muni is mentioning. Guru Charana Saroja Sannidhanad api vayamasya Muni Kalesa Bhajah api Mahati Jalannave Imagnaha Salilamupapadate Mitam Himinaha Guru Charana Saroja Sannidhanadapi. So, the Charana Kamalaj we say, even though I have taken refuge at the feet of my Acharya, my Guru, I am very close. This is taken from Sankshepa Sari Raka, another very advanced level, beautiful Vedantic text. Guru Charana Saroja Sannidhanad Api. So I'm very close to my Acharya, I'm very loyal, I'm very consistent, I'm studying. Even then, Vayam, we all, that means he himself, Asya Gunaika Bhajaha. I have not been able to comprehend all that he holds in him. I'm being able to learn only maybe 1% of it. Very little. Why so? Why you haven't been able to grasp everything that he has studied? He's saying, I'll tell you why. Api Mahati Jalar Nave. Mahati Jalar Nave. So you have a huge water body. Mahati. This is seventh case. Jalar Nave. Nimagnaha. So you have a fish which is swimming in the deep sea. That is a Mahat Jalarnavam. So in that Mahati Jalarnave, he is swimming. Nimagnaha Salilam Upadadate. How much of Salila, water, he is being able to consume? He's saying Meetam. Meetam hi Salilam Upadadate Minaha. The fish who are swimming in deep waters, are they being able to drink the whole ocean? They would only consume the amount of water they can consume and what is required for them. So, irrespective of the wisdom, the depth of wisdom, the huge volume of information, and the Sastra Jnana, everything which is there with him, the student is able to grasp only a tiny part of it. Depending on his interest, his training, his ability, he tries to get it. So there is always a bit of, what do you call it? There's a bit of depreciation of the quality which is imparted. Now, it's not always so. Sometimes the Sishyas in our tradition work on what they receive. This statement is mentioning out of humility that I only get a tiny part of it. If you look at, of course, he has not been able to overgrow or go beyond or overcome the intellectual impact or influence of their gurus. There are some Sishyas who take the message of the guru forward by enhancing the impact. That has nothing to do with the depth of what they have received from their gurus. Sometimes the gurus are not good at spreading it. And so Sishyas actually make their gurus famous. If you look at Swami Vivekananda, Thakur did not write much, but the depth of Thakur's spiritual impact became visible through his disciple, Swami Vivekananda. And there are so many. Sometimes the Sishya is equally smart and he writes his commentaries, like, for example, Prabhakara, who was a Mimamsaka, who was the disciple of Kumarila Bhatta. He was so sharp that his own Acharya addressed him as Guru. out of love and affection. And he is always referred to as Guru. So his views are referred to as Guru Mata in our intellectual tradition. These things are very interesting. These things are very, very interesting because they indicate to us how nicely there is a beautiful Guru Parampara handing down of the wisdom and the interpretations from one generation to another. He's saying Jathamati means what? Obviously, if we put this into our context, whatever he has studied with his own Acharya, this is he is passing over to us. But why did he take the name of Guru? You remember in Bhagavad Gita, when this Duryodhana is very depressed and he's telling his Acharya, Dronacharya, that look, we are having fights and they have these big fighters, archers, and we have many Maharathis, like all these people, including you. What did Bhishma Pitamaha do? He started blowing the conch to motivate him, to tell him, I am verily present here, don't you worry. Because he said that we need to protect Bhishma Pitamaha because he's old, number one. So far he's there, we have a grip over the war. But the commentators have clearly mentioned that he was so scared that it was visible to the eyes of the Pitamaha, so that he started blowing the conch in order to bring in a sense of confidence on that side of the army. Now the commentator is saying this particular Guru Pranama is for what? Is it because of Vadi Bhaya? Somebody is going to come and challenge your interpretation, so you are taking the name of the Guru? Or it is only for reducing your own self-confidence, your arrogance, your egoism, Garva Parihara? So Harihi Om, we always say this. We are remembering God before we do any sastra, when we end any sastra. One of the purposes of this is to be constantly aware of divinity, and not at all attribute anything to us. So he is doing Gurun Aradhya, Bhakti Shraddha, Atisaya Stuti Namaskaradina, Devam Eva Pujaitva. So he's worshipping Guru as if he's his own God, Aradhya Devata. So he's doing. And who are these gurus? He's mentioning Advayananda Arthataha Api. So he has actually gone beyond the real Dvaita Bhana means he is no more stuck with the phenomenal existence, the phenomenal appearance of reality as samsara. The truth appears in different names and forms which are not fundamentally real. They are Vyavaharika Satya. And therefore, the student is taking the name of this Guru to be constantly aware of that fundamental reality about which he's going to write. And he's saying Yathamati, two ways it can be interpreted is explained to me, plus the way I have been able to understand it, and I'm ready to pass it on to the next generation in the form of this beautiful book called Vedantasara. Now, Vedantasara is going to say, so we need to reflect on that word a little. I have already mentioned. Vedantasara is summary of Vedanta. So there are two indications here. Number one, that by saying Vedantasara, he's saying it is not a new book. This is not a creative exercise on my part where I'm trying to construct certain concepts and give it to you. He's saying no. It's part of the whole context of Vedanta. There is no independent prayojana. There is no independent discussion on Anubandha Chatushtaya. What is Anubandha Chatushtaya? Anubandha Chatushtaya is what ties you down to this particular very text. This is a kind of a flyer which is issued, a pamphlet which is prepared for a workshop, for a seminar. Similarly for this book. This is about what Vishaya, why should we study, that is Prayojana, and who can study and understand and grasp its meaning and make use of it, that is Adhikari. Adhikari is always a Yogyata. And finally, Sambandha, Pratipadya, Pratipadaka, Sambandha. What is the text we are studying and how does it delineate, how does it explain, how does it expand those secrets that will help us understand reality and thus, liberate ourselves, free us from the clutches of samsara. That is what he's saying. Now, one thing I would like to say that the Vedanta is part of the Vedas towards the end. We have discussed that earlier. So you have Sanhita, the mantras, and they are called Veda Trai. Why are they called Veda Trai? Because Atharva Veda is utilitarian mantras are compiled at one place from the three Vedas. Atharva Veda mostly is kind of a restatement and compilation. Therefore, Veda Trai only they are mentioned. Because there are a lot of spells and for healing, for especially for removal of different kinds of negative impacts of diseases. A lot of solutions. Nirakarana is described. Some people say that there are some spells which have something to do with magic. Different people interpret different things. So Atharva Veda is not considered to be an independent text. So you know that the Shruti is considered to be apaurushaya, not authored by anyone. You have to understand what is Vedas. It's like a text without an author. You find a book of physics. It sounds very logical to you. It's a nicely constructed text. Author space is missing. Do you or do you not read the book? No, you try to read and make sense of it. Now, Veda is pramana for us, ultimate pramana. It's called Shabda pramana. Apta Vakya Janya pramana. What is pramana? Pramakarana. That which gives you an ability to get the truth. That is pramana. Method of knowledge. They call it epistemology in philosophy, methods of knowledge. Now, there are different methods of knowledge. We have discussed that earlier. So, these are basically pratyaksha, anumana, direct perception. Anumana is inferential knowledge. Upamana is comparative analysis, sadrishya jnana. And then you have arthapati, anupalabdhi. Arthapati is that you go and knock at the door of somebody, he's not at home. Then you presume, okay, he has gone to school because he's a professor or he's a teacher. Or somebody's a gardener, he's a farmer, he's not at home, so he must be in his farm. That kind of inference, arthapati. And then you have anupalabdhi. If it is there, it will be visible. It's not there. So how do you have abhava jnana, absence of something? How do you know? They say anupalabdhi. So if there is no upalabdhi of something, he's not there. It was a pen, there was a pen on the table. So there was a participant in the class and he's not there. That means he's not there. Maybe somewhere else. So you are having the knowledge of the absence of that person in the class. That is anupalabdhi. That is also one knowledge. That one method of knowledge. And finally, there's something called sabda jnana, sabda. So different schools of thought, they don't accept all these six. Many of them just accept pratyaksha, anumana, and a sabda. Some people accept anupalabdhi, some people do not accept anupalabdhi. A lot of people put upamana and even anupalabdhi and arthapati in anumana only, because these are all derivative inferential knowledge using logic, deriving conclusions. So they put it in anumana. So they put only pratyaksha, anumana, and sabda jnana. Only three they accept. Quite a few people. Some people give more importance to anumana. They don't give too much importance to pratyaksha. Like if you look at the Bauddhas, because they think that is more important to have good logical analysis, because only pratyaksha cannot give you very reliable knowledge, because what you see is not to be taken too seriously. It's also true if you look at astrophysics. What do you see? What you see is very limited. What you don't see is more important. So you're doing a lot of logical analysis, mathematical modeling to figure out how it may work. So you're having logical models. Similarly, the Charvaka Darshana, they give most importance to pratyaksha, direct perception. Why am I mentioning all this suddenly here? There is a beautiful verse that what is Veda? Why should we study? So he says, Pratyakshena numityava vastupayo na buddhyate enam idanti vedena tasmad vedasya vedata. That which explains to us, that which gives us some truths, which we cannot get through pratyaksha or anumana. We cannot physically perceive nor can we deduce them using our logical understanding. But is there a person? If you say Apta Vakya, there is a Apta person there, reliable person, some authority. It's in English called testimonial knowledge. Testimony as a method of knowledge. Testimony as a method of knowledge. Somebody, there is an authority, so I'm quoting it. Like in the quotes, they say, you're saying this, has there been a precedent? Here you're quoting some big authority. You have a lot of axioms in mathematics. Similarly, you're quoting somebody. Now he's saying the Vedas tell you about things which cannot be logically deduced or cannot be perceived directly, like Swarga. Have you seen it? If you do this by Punya Karma, you will go to Swarga. There is a Brahma Loka, there is a Satya Loka. Where did you get all this? Pitri Loka. There's no proof. Can you logically deduce it? No. Have you seen it? No. Why do you believe in all them? He said, no, this is what is written in the Vedas. That is how. Tasmad Vedasya Vedata. Because it gives you a handle to get truths which are not otherwise available to us. That is how the context is the Vedanta. Any doubt you may have in your minds, the Vedanta is inferred, is understood, is derived, nothing independent but from the Shruti Vakyas. The correct interpretation of the Shruti Vakyas is what we study as Vedanta. That is what he's mentioning. Then this it is why we cannot doubt it, because it is not subject to the limitations of human mind, because one person has not written them. This is through tradition given to us, and it's Apurusheya. Now, there is one gap you need to remember this. Between the Mimamsakas, the Mimamsa Darshana philosophers, Darshanikas, and the Vedantis, our tradition, Apaurusheyata. Now, for them, Veda is eternal, the Sansara Srishti is eternal. Is there any Pralaya again, created again and again? They don't believe in all this. When was the Sansara created? It's always there. Is there a Ishvara which creates? I don't know what is Ishvara. We know that you do these pujas, you get the results. We don't waste too much of time trying to trace the origin of this samsara. It's a futile exercise. Veda is written, is fine. The Vedanti brings a new element. He says, no, there are quite a few statements about Pralaya. You are ignoring them. Now, if it's Pralaya, then how the Vedas will be available to the next Kalpa? We studied in the chapter 8 in Bhagavad Gita when they were mentioning how new Kalpas come and how people are created. So they are clarifying there that look here. The Veda is Apurusheya. So Brahmaji gives us Vedas in the beginning of another Kalpa. And all these are in seed form, including Brahmaji himself. In Kalpa, everything, all the Devatas, people, everybody becomes in the causal form. That is there in Ishvara. Again, he creates the Tanmatras, creates Hiranyagarbha. He's the Karya Brahma. He starts creating Sansara. Karya Brahma means what? The Brahma who is also a product, he becomes the first product. Why? Ishvara creates him. Karana, Ishvara is Sarva Karana. Why not Brahma? Brahma is beyond Karya Karana. Through Ishvara, Brahma is doing, but we attribute it to the Ishvara. That is the dominant viewpoint. So, the Vedas are eternal with gaps. Otherwise, they cannot exist during Pralaya. So they also return to the causal form. Everything there is a pralaya. So where do you keep these Vedas? The people who used to remember them, they are gone. How can they stay? They stay in memory, but people who have memory, they are gone. So we'll keep them in causal form. The causal form, Ishvara. So again and again, they can come back. That is what is mentioning. So this is a minor, clarification that I wanted to give it. So we do this, and that is how he concludes the second verse. That this is Apurusheya, and we are doing it. Now we are beginning the verse number is in prose form 3. What is it? Let's look at it. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam Tad Upakarini Sariraka Sutradinicha. That is the statement. And then, that is the most important thing. Asya Vedanta Prakaranatvad Tadyair Eva Anubandheis Tadavatta Siddher न ते पृथक आलोचनीयाः तत्र अनुबंधो नाम अधिकारी विषय संबंध प्रयोजनानि. That is the third line in this whole text. So what is it? Let's look at it word by word. Vedanta nama. What is Vedanta? That question will come into your mind. How do I know it? He's saying, look here, Vedanta means the philosophy that we are presenting to you. He's saying Upanishad Pramanam. Whatever is written in the Upanishads, based on that, the body of knowledge that we have, that is considered to be the Vedanta Shastra. And it is based on the Pramana. It's not anything, nothing is done independently. Okay? So that is how he's explaining that Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam Tad Upakarini Sariraka Sutradinicha. So now you would have in your mind these two questions. What is Tad Upakarini? What is going to help us? Sariraka Sutradinicha. So this much, let's do it and we'll go forward tomorrow. Saririka Sutrani refers to Vedanta Sutrani, or they are called Uttara Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa is about Karma Kandas. Uttara Mimamsa is referred to as what? The Vedanta thing. And the Saririka Sutras refer to the Brahma Sutras written by Vadarayana. Vadarayana and Vedavyasa, there is a bit of academic discussion there. Some people attribute both the names to one person, Vedavyasa, compiler of the Vedas. Some people say Vadarayana, maybe another person, but we need not waste time on that. That is of academic interest to some people. So these Brahma Sutras he composed, and the Brahma Sutras were absolutely not making any sense to anybody because they are of much later date in terms of chronology if you compare them with the compilation of the Vedas. But there are many scholars who are also referred to in the Vedanta Sutras or the Sariraka Sutras. What is this Sariraka? Is explaining Sariraka is referently about this Brahma Tattva, is about the Atma. Okay. Therefore, he's saying Vedanta Sabda, Vedanta Nama Ityadina, Upanishad Sabdo. Now, Upanishad first we have to understand. What is this Upanishad? Upa is Samipyarthe, near. Ni. Ni is, Nishchayarthe. So when you dwell close to the Pratyagatma, that Brahma Chaitanya, Sad, Sadayati, it quietens what? All your dukkhas. And it enhances your inner feeling of well-being and goodness. It gives you Niratisaya Ananda, which is beyond the experience of pleasure and pain that we pass through in our everyday lives, on good occasions and bad occasions. So Upanishad in that sense is essentially about jnana. It's about enlightenment. It's about coming out of samsara through a process of enlightenment. If that is the case, then why are we having names called Kathopanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad? Now he's saying it has become what is called a rudha. It is kind of used in a fixed tense, like pankaja. Pankaja means what? Born out of mud. But by pankaj, we are referring to Padma, Kamal. We are referring to lotus flower. Similarly, Upanishad, because through these books, how do you go and stand close to the Atma, meditate on the Atma? Is it easy? Upanishad? No. Through the Vedanta Vakyas. You use the Vedanta Vakyas, Shruti Vakyas, as a means of meditating on the truth and staying close to the Atma Tattva. Therefore, these texts are also referred to as Upanishad. And again, the Upanishad, where do you get this Vedanta Shastra? There were no books in the earlier days. So you go and sit next to the Acharya, and through this satsanga with the Acharya, you are able to know the secrets of the Vedas, and then you dwell on them, you meditate on them, Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, you have Nishchayatmaka Buddhi about the Atma Tattva, and then you are enlightened. Therefore, Upanishad is also about the text, that book. Upanishad also is this whole process of enlightenment. Okay. Therefore, this Upanishad Pramanam, Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam, Tad Upakarini, Vedanta Sutrani cha, Sutradini cha. You know, why he's saying Sutradini, Adi Sabda? In our parampara, we will not use one Upasaraga in half a word just for free. No, we know. They say matra labha, putra labha. If you can even save one matra, it's like having a son. Look at it. So, reducing the amount of words you are using is central to our spiritual tradition. Say in less words. I told you why they were doing it. Why? Because pen and paper they were not using. Memorize. So, if you write more words, more difficult to remember. Therefore, speak less words which can be easily remembered. In that context only, we were discussing this. So, this Adi Sabda would refer to what? Like Shankara Bhashya. The Bhashyas are also there. So, Vedanta Sutra Dini, Sutra and other such comparable texts would mean the Bhashya and the Upanishads, and also Bhashya and the Brahma Sutras. Right? Before Shankaracharya, why he's considered to be the master of Advaita Vedanta, before them we had a few Vedantists who also made interpretation of the Vedantic texts and Upanishads in the Jnana Parampara. However, nobody had access to the Brahma Sutras. Sankaracharya, Adi Sankara, is the first person to have written Bhasya. The Vaishnavas, the Saivites, everybody made sense of the Vedas in the light of either criticizing him or accepting him is a different thing. But they could not enter the Upanishads, they could not enter the Brahma Sutras. That means the secret of the Vedas was impenetrable to the minds of normal students prior to. It's not that they did not understand. There was no codified body of knowledge which you can read quickly and understand what is the meaning of this sentence. Why these Upanishads are saying so many things. Therefore, we say Sankaram, Sankaracharya, Sankara Parameshwara, Sankaracharya is Avatara, and Sutra Bhasya and Vyasa Vadarayana. So we start with Narayana. He is the Paramaguru in the Saiva Parampara, because the Sannyasa Parampara is Saiva Parampara, Vairagyatmaka Parampara. So for the Saivites, Narayana is the Paramaguru. In the Vaishnava, Shiva is the Paramaguru. So we have a very rich syncretic tradition. Now you have God himself, you have the Acharya through which it comes. Sutra Bhasya Kritau Vande. Sutrakara is Vadarayana, Bhasyakara is Sankaracharya. I am worshipping both, because in the absence of both, without one of them, my understanding of Vedanta is not complete, because we need Vedanta Sutra to make sense of Upanishads and remove the contradictory statements which are mentioned there, but we'll put it in a right context and make sense of it. That is what he's mentioning. So, this is what is Upanishad Pramana, that much we have done. We'll move forward tomorrow. We've crossed the timing limit. We'll do the Shanti Mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ तत्सत्